Welcome everybody to the special meeting and a fairly significant meeting in the some of the decisions and recommendations we make today will certainly shape where we head over the next few years. Also significant in that it will be Andy's last meeting, and I'd like to thank him for all the work he has done, and also now which is culminated in what we're meeting today in terms of the enormous body of work which is in the 287 pages, which I'm sure you all have read. There will be a multiple answer choice test at the end of the meeting. What I'd like to do today is we have 8 points to run through regarding the recommendations. So, and there are a series of areas where we would just need to receive the report. The chunky stuff will come in 7.8, where we make recommendations that will go to the chamber. What I'm proposing is that we, on the earlier points, we, assuming everybody has read that, I'll just call for people to make comments on parts of those various things that we have received, and looking to move through them reasonably quickly, and then focus a little bit more on the written submissions and the specific submissions we have from the industry, from our sponsors, and from the mods and hogs, and then try and move to 7.8. I'd like to be done within 2 hours, and in 1 hour's time, I think we might all get up, have a glass of water, and run around the table and sit down and say a statement. So kicking off straight away, I think we need to do firstly any apologies. We have Warren, Phil,
Councillor McGregor.
And Councillor McGregor. So it's and sorry, I've missed acknowledgement of country. Would you like to do that, Simone, or would you like me to do that? We can't hear Simone. Hang on, we can't hear you. Oh, looks like you've got.
Oh, good. Is that better?
There we are, we've got you.
Mid-Murray Council would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land, the Ngadjuri, Naywong, Nangaraku, Narkat, Ngarrindjeri and Paramak peoples of the Mid-Murray lands and waters. It is upon their ancestral lands and waters that the Mid-Murray Council meets and operates, and Council pays respect to elders past and present and their spiritual beliefs that are of continuing importance to those First Nations peoples of today. Council further acknowledges the contributions and important role that First Nations peoples continue to play within the community, and we extend that respect to any peoples in attendance here today.
Thank you. Moving on to section 4, so confirmation of minutes. Now this is different to actually published here. The confirmation of minutes are for our previous minuted meeting, which was on the 28th of August. Would somebody like to move that we accept those minutes?
Okay.
Di, thank you, Di, and seconding. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, done. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest that need to be raised today? No, thank you. Moving on. And deputations, I don't believe we have any. Excellent. So, no. Moving on to item 7. So we start to move through the reports. Do you want to lead us into the 7.1, Andy, which is the an overview of the survey responses from the public consultation?
Sure. Like Andrew, I'm not going to try and go too verbatim with what's been given to you. So hopefully you've had the opportunity to at least read the reports, if not the background information. So as you're aware, the public engagement plan was released on the 16th of September and worked all the way through to the 31st of October. We received 194 respondents to the survey and 15 written submissions. Included in there was one expression of interest to investigate outsourcing options for PS Canali in the future. And there's resulted in very, very strong and positive feedback to retain the vessels. The overarching themes were quite strong. A couple of points to note: 36% of the respondents were council volunteers. When I put the survey together, I was a little concerned that we would have more volunteers than members of the public, which could have swayed the results significantly. What we've got is around about 1/3 volunteers, 2/3 public and other interested people. So I think it is a fairly representative and balanced response that we've got. The majority of surveys came from Manham and surrounds, which is not surprising, with 2 operating vessels, 29 from Morgan Cadell, and further 10 from Blanchtown. And there were 59 respondents indicated they were from other areas. There was a significant lack of engagement in non-river based towns throughout Mid-Murray, with only 5 submissions received. I have no rationale for that, but that's the way it was. So within the survey, there were 58% were interested community members who identified as this, also Mid-Murray ratepayers, business owners, tourism business operators, volunteers, industry reps, and other, which was 5%. So there are a number of statistical responses there. I'm sure you've read this, but 179 out of 194 surveys said it was very important to keep the heritage river boats operating, with only 8 responses saying that that was not important. 112 or 60% preferred council operations to continue, with another 40 indicating that outsourcing operations would be their preference. Only 6% of people, or 3% of people indicated they wanted council to cease the investment of operations, and that was only 3% of the total survey response. Interestingly, it's nearly 70% of respondents said the most important item in any new operation model, the vessels remained operational and accessible within the Mid-Murray region, with only a very small percentage, around about 6% of people saying a sustainable financial model for council was their preferred option. To let you draw some conclusions at this time, but we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later on. Most people, 58%, felt council's investment was about right. And another 26 people said it was too low. It wasn't an option that we actually gave in the survey. Well, sorry, yes, it was an option that we gave in the survey. It wasn't an option in another area. And only 18 or 10% of people said that it was too high. As we go through the importance of the heritage vessels came out extremely important, with not one person in any format of the survey saying that the heritage value of the heritage identity of vessels was not important at all. So that's a significant thing. Most, very high percentage of 86 had already taken a cruise on Marion or Mayflower, so they are connected to area quite well. And the rest of it, I think, will, I'll just wait and see if there's any questions on any of that.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on that?
It was pleasing to see such a strong response for the votes, a positive response to the votes. I was really wondered what the feedback would be, so it was interesting to see overwhelmingly strong.
I had a question to, I think we talked about it earlier. What would the average be of respondents to similar public consultations that you've had in your knowledge?
Ben might be able to answer that.
Significantly lower.
And, but, also, oh, no, I'll leave that one be. Any other questions or comments?
Just through the chair, Simone, do you want to make a comment on that?
I was just going to say our annual business plan, which is where we set the rates each year. I think we had two people feedback to rate setting.
Right. Well, that's would prove that they're more interested in votes than they are on their rates. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, we can. I suppose we can say it was a very positive response relative to other public consultations.
And that's
Yeah.
the importance of that. That's been significant in the results here.
Yes.
That's how people view that.
Yes. Yeah. In terms of the passion and the the passion and the sense of ownership that the community has for the votes.
And it is what council needs. It's very hard to make decisions based on a few people feeding back. So I wonder if we included a question is how much more are you happy to pay your rate? Maybe we would have got some different responses. But, you know, for me, it's great to read that kind of feedback. So it's good to see that lots of people have put some effort and time into feeding back.
So anything else on that? Then would somebody like to move? We receive. So we're moving to receive just the survey, first part of the survey results.
I'll move that.
So Di second, Sean move. So now moving through to the survey comments, which will be page 30, is the second section. So this is actually probably the I would suggest if you haven't read it already, don't start it now because this is fairly chunky, but still there's some very interesting perspectives and probably some pearl ideas which would be worth going through at a later stage. Andy, I suppose I should ask, were there any standouts that anybody would like to reference as rather than there's no way we're going to go through them one by one at this point? We've lost Jen.
Let me just maybe explain the rationale behind this one. We opened the survey up to open-ended questions quite a bit to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to say exactly what they wanted to say. There were open-ended questions in a number of the survey responses. And what I've done here is taken the comments from the survey results, grouped them all by question, and dot pointed them into a common document. Facing 700 plus comments and trying to read, absorb and accurately represent all of those, I felt was beyond my capacity and the timeline that we had here. We could spend another month doing that. So I asked Copilot to give me a hand. I've told you in the report what I asked Copilot to do, and have provided Copilot's response, which has been unaltered. What we have done as council officers have a look back through a number of those comments and dot points, probably 800 or so, to make sure that they were in keeping with what Copilot's response had given. Okay, so if you're happy with that rationale, this is the result of using Copilot, which is a really good tool. Council staff have got access to now, which does help. It's certainly come back to workload for me.
Yeah. So moving through that, is there any specific comments that anybody wanted to make note of at this point? If not, I think we'll move through to Anything being, Simone, you're happy? In that case, I'd like to ask for somebody to move that we receive 7.2. Kevin, and second, or Les, I'll take this one. So then moving to 7.3, we look at written submissions, which you will find on page 75. So there's 6 that we have there. Do you want to handle these, Andy?
Yeah, look, I summarised each of the 6 responses within the report, so we stick to them rather than go reading the reports verbatim. Mr. Young recommends reaching out to a major tourism operator, Journey Beyond. That was his key suggestion. Mr. Harkin, community expresses concern about rumours of the boats being relocated away. Just his perception of what we were trying to do. Highlights the strong association between Manham's identity and the paddle boats, and obviously the enhancement of local pride and visitor experiences. Requested the paddle wheelers remain in Manham. That's very much in keeping with everything else we've got. Mr. Bartlett looked at the governance model and proposed community cooperative, advocates for a community cooperative, not-for-profit, non-distributing model. Kindly sent in an attachment with his response, which I've included into this report later on, or into the agenda later on. Suggested council retain ownership of become one of several funding partners. Recommends the sale of shares to foster local ownership, and notes that the co-op model offers more flexibility than the cooperative association, and offered those supporting materials. I believe we also came to the public meeting as well in Manham, reiterated those comments. Mr. Fridham was basically looking at the value of the heritage vessels, strongly supporting the continued operation, pointed out a whole heap of highlights and benefits of having them, and emphasised that losing them would be significant loss to the community's identity and heritage. Mr. Johnson, operational and community focus, commended council's efforts, the comprehensive nature of the sustainability report. Good that someone read it. I'm sure plenty of people did based on feedback. Supports the continued council ownership, suggests moving away from Section 41 committee to a more community-driven model. Stated similar to a men's shed or service club, but I think we could do better than that one. Recommended forming an incorporated body, advocates for targeted volunteer recruitment, and highlights the importance of volunteer voice. Proposed expanding cruise activities to include educational historical tours and connecting with other river towns. Notes the importance of educating the public about the environment, evolution of steam vessels. And attachment 6 was Dunk. He was focusing on management of volunteer empowerment from his extensive river history. Proposed transferring day-to-day operations to a private or non-government body, citing risks to the council's control and volunteer engagement. Recommends keeping vessels under council oversight with a new management structure. I guess oversight means as one of the stakeholders, not actively the body running it. Council suggests developing more operational maintenance responsibilities to volunteer groups, advocates for tighter supervision of contractors and improving training for volunteers, encourages collaboration with similar local groups and resource sharing, proposes regular meetings and reporting between council and volunteer groups, council maintaining a strategic oversight role, emphasising the need to minimise regulatory burdens on volunteers while aiming to compliance. Generally, across the board, multiple submissions stress the importance of paddle steamers, broad support for models that keep ownership and management within council or around council, empowering and supporting volunteers, concerns about the risks of private or external management, suggests including exploring partnerships with major tourism operators and include improving governance, targeted volunteer recruitment, streamlining compliance and expanding education and tourism offerings.
Thoughts, comments from anybody on any votes?
How should we, like, there's a quite interesting and comprehensive responses, which I guess to interleave with the questionnaire type response that was sent out. How would we incorporate them being a written response versus a questionnaire response to sort of give them similar weight, or
Each of the people that did a written submission, I believe, also did a survey. Now, they just wanted to say more. I would have to double check to make sure that all of them did, but looking at the names, they're all very familiar when I went through the surveys. So each of those sentiments are wrapped up in the survey responses as an overall. So I think there's some really good points and maybe some extra information in here to maybe think about as we move forward with this. But I think the emphasis around the survey and the additional comments within the survey also encapsulates what these 6 responses have had to say.
I was thinking that in listening to Andy is that we would go back to these dot points and see that we have in moving forward, whether we have addressed the concerns that those people have raised within these responses. I also noted in some of the individual responses there were specific comments made which were evident that people I don't mean it critically, hadn't read the whole report, or they weren't aware of different things that we'd done or tried. So my question, so what's our response to the people who have made individual submissions? Do we go back to them individually with a response?
Everyone has been acknowledged, whether they're a survey respondent or a written respondent.
Yeah.
As they provided their email details, everyone that provided email has been responded to.
The way I looked at it, I mean, you had your survey, these 6 individuals, I'll use the word passion. They had a bit more passion about the subject than maybe others did, and that's why they responded in their way.
And I think in some cases may have been volunteers a long time back, that are long standing, and I picked some of that up that it obviously had a long standing
they seem to
historic
know.
relationship with the boat. So I think just for the benefit of the recording, if they are watching this recording, I'd like to thank those people on behalf of the committee for taking the time to make measured and accurate responses. And also, we welcome them. We should have handed out volunteer registration forms, perhaps not. So,
I mean, can you imagine, getting 180 responses like that?
yes.
Taking for university.
Well, Andy's discovered AI, so.
Yeah.
Any comments from our externals on that? So,
Through Chair,
Yep.
I know Andy's acknowledged the receipt of this. Would it be an idea to ask each of the 6, we're now considering further moves, do you have anything you'd like to add? Then they've got no comeback. That's a problem, but it's just a courtesy to say, well, have you thought of anything else?
I know Andy's call on that one.
I think that'll be the next tourism manager's call.
Yeah.
So to be honest, as we roll on from here, I have not only acknowledged their submission, but I'm keeping them informed of the process. So they know we're meeting today. I know council's meeting on the 16th. They know the decisions of council will be notified back to them. And then they will also be kept informed with all of the survey respondents. We've now got a database of them as to where we're going in the new financial year. And that's where Steve will take over from me.
Well, as long as if you're comfortable that they feel the door's still open, but Kevin's comment about the fact that these people are passionate is accurate. I think and rather than just say that's it.
No, I mean,
I would live or die. I'm just suggesting.
I think, Andy certainly think got it covered, and they can watch the recording of this meeting. I think also they would probably have attended the physical meeting, the open meeting as well, so. And if there's no further comments on,
Through the chair, Andrew, sorry. Just on that discussion, we had an engagement process. The process was open to a certain time. And so, those people have provided that feedback during that period. If we were to open it up and ask them or give them another opportunity, we would need to do that for anyone else as well. So I think it's definitely reasonable what Andy's done, gone above and beyond, to be honest, to keep them informed about the process. So yeah, I'm comfortable with what we've done.
there was a specific 30-day period for public consultation. Yeah. Okay, would somebody like to move that we accept or receive the written submissions? Jen said, and second, Di, thank you. Okay.
Andrew, just so you need to take a vote on each of those.
Sorry. All those in favour? Thank you. I think we're carried. Okay, moving to page 92, which is the Rockford submission. Andy,
Okay, so this is the second part of 3 for the written submissions. I thought grouping our sponsors together was a good strategy. Robert McCallaghan and Pam O'Donnell provided a fairly brief email to me, which is attached, and Rockford Wines as an organisation provided a one-pager to me. Interestingly, from here, and I'm sure most people here have read those because they're fairly short in nature, but Pam and Robert are proposing that the heritage fleet should remain active in the Manning region under public, not private ownership. So that goes in line with what we've already heard. It's just the establishment of a not-for-profit body to manage the heritage vessels with representation from council, private owners and volunteers. Again, similar. Recommends appointing a paid manager to lead the organisation. At the moment, have one. If it becomes an external body, that is an option for that body, whether it be a community cooperative or a community group or a not-for-profit organisation. Recommends appointing, envisages council as a major financial beneficiary with contributions from donors and in-kind support from volunteers. Ownership would initially remain with council, interestingly, transitioning to a trust with representatives from the 3 parties to secure the fleet's future, and further discussion and collaboration on proposals invited. They are very keen to be involved as we move forward in that, which is a fabulous position for them to be in. And the Rockford Wines as an organisation and endorsing the creation of a not-for-profit body to manage the Marion and Mayflower, involving council and donor patrons, supports the appointment of a paid manager with council retaining ownership in a key financial role, volunteers continuing kind, and for considerations, the Marion is historically unique and requires focused efforts to ensure survival. Mayflower is operationally sound and should not subsidise the PS Marion, and the Marion needs a specialised operational model and refreshed marketing to attract new audiences. Encourages council to keep the heritage fleet operating, allocating resources for long-term model, maintaining its leadership. So both of those submissions advocate for not-for-profit to run the boats and structured approach with council and volunteers. recommending paid management. There's consensus on the importance of community benefits. Roberts and Pamela's focused on the transition to a trust and public ownership and the value of the Marion needing to be a dedicated resource or special attention.
And I'm assuming there's two separate submissions because effectively there's two separate sponsorship bodies there. We have in the past received money from Robert and Pam as individuals, and we've also received money from Rockford on a ongoing contractual basis.
Yeah.
Any comments? Thoughts? I think that's all fairly clear and succinct. Would somebody like to move that we receive? Kevin? So,
There's Simone, which one's Simone?
Simone, okay. And all those in favour? We carried, thank you. 7.5, page 97, which is submissions from the tourism and maritime industry bodies.
I think this is really pleasing to be able to get these 5 groups to provide a written submission. It shows the strength of support for experiences within our region from a tourism perspective, and also for the operation of vessels, heritage vessels on the river. I'm extremely pleased both the Tourism Commission and the Tourism Industry Council, along with the 2 regional tourism organisations, took the time to respond. I did invite them all to respond, and they all did, which is fantastic. Well, they've had some extremely positive inclusions within their submissions. Sarah obviously values heritage riverboats and wants to see them keep on going, encourages council to do so, but does not see vessel management within their charter, which is fair enough too. They're willing to support any independent group or association that is interested in taking on one or more of our heritage vessels, which is great support for that model. Murray River Lakes and Coorong strongly supporting the review and the continued operation of the fleet. Fleet reiterated that we're delivering $1.2 million in community and economic benefit, endorsing, exploring, releasing and divestment option to a not-for-profit, and the operation of riverboats aligns with their priorities for authentic visitor experiences and sustainable tourism. Tourism Industry Council fully supports findings and recommendations of the management review, confirms a significant economic and community benefit versus costs, advocate for a not-for-profit or a similar model for vessel operations, allowing council to retain ownership and empowering community partners for day-to-day management, supporting joint operation of the Marion and Mayflower with a standalone model for Canally, stressing the importance of volunteer engagement and streamlined governance. The Tourism Commission strongly supports preservation and enhancement of heritage vessels, recognising their cultural, historical and economic significance. Vessels are unique tourism assets, pivotal to regional identity, visitor attraction and community pride. Heritage cruising aligns with SOTC's priorities for regional dispersal, heritage tourism and sustainable economies, and encourage broad stakeholder participation and collaboration to ensure the vessel's future, highlighting the importance of volunteer contributions and local reinvestment. And Destination Riverland, supporting a sustainable model, preserves the maritime heritage and maximises tourism benefits. The riverboats are iconic to South Australia's river tourism, are vital for regional visitation, recognises challenges, governance, reliance on ageing volunteers and local government constraints, recommends operation of partnerships or leasing models that retain council ownership and provide greater flexibility, and emphasises the need for volunteer succession planning and integration. It supports council in owning the assets and engaging a separate organisation for operations, they're saying option 2 in the draft management review. All over, there's agreement that there's great heritage value, essential, in fact, there's consensus that will provide economic impact, strong support for models that involve not-for-profit community-based management, with council retaining ownership, volunteer engagement, fully supportive, thus continuing along that line. Stakeholders advocate for collaborative approaches both in management marketing to ensure long-term viability, and then saying that the recommendations align with broader regional and state strategies, emphasising authentic experiences, heritage preservation and sustainable growth.
Thank you, Andy. Comments, thoughts, accolades? Thank you, Betsy.
Pretty much cookie cutter responses, I would have thought. I'd be extremely surprised if they said anything other than what they have said. I think the acid test for all of those departments, with exception the inland rivers boys, the acid test will be when we really need support, or any future really needs support. I'm talking about money, that they stand up and be equally as effusive as they have been here. Heard it all before, how's that?
Thank you, Liz.
Lovely, but
any comments from the screen? No, thank you. Okay, moving us through, would somebody like to move that we receive? I need a hand. Thank you, Di. Need a second. It's like an option for Sean. All those in favour of receiving the submissions from tourism and maritime industry? Thank you. Moving through now to 7.6, the mods and cogs, on page 108.
So 2 very important groups of volunteer representation, representing all 3 of our vessels. Logs have provided, both of the cats, sorry, I want to just read them out. So all members present at MOGS that day accepted the content of the draft management review report. In formulating the recommendations to the Heritage Maritime Committee, the committee members present reported verbally that engaged in conversation with the volunteer group, and the general consensus is that council continues to support the operations of 3 heritage vessels as it currently does. The committee and the wider volunteer group recognise the uniqueness of the models, particularly PS Marion being the only steam-driven paddle wheel of accommodation remaining worldwide, and the significant benefits they provide to Campsie region. All intents agreed, it would be strongly preferred to maintain the operational vessels rather than see them become museum pieces of static display. COGS, Canal Operations Group, committed to thoroughly exploring the options and possibilities associated with leasing the canal from Mid-Murray Council, acknowledging the need and considered and comprehensive approach that COG is currently actively investigating all available avenues to ensure that most suitable leasing arrangement is identified for the vessel. Given that Canal has not yet commenced operational service and there is no established work model for the vessel, the operations group recommends that the Mid-Murray Council should operate the boat for an initial period of a minimum of 12 months with a date to be determined. This initial operation period will enable practical assessment of the vessel's viability and provide valuable insights into its performance and operational capabilities. Following the successful completion of the initial time to be determined operational period by Mid-Murray Council, and provided that the vessel is confirmed to be viable, it was proposed that management and operational responsibility for Canal may then be transitioned to the Canal Operations Group, who would obviously need to become an incorporated body for that to happen.
Comments? thoughts? Then come on, there has to be some comments for you, please.
It's interesting that MOG, as much as they're already in, well, the current scenario they're in and seem to sometimes have problems with it, as volunteers and dealing with council, they also recommend that nothing changes. That they're sort of, I guess, overall generally happy with how it's working.
The position was put to them that your recommendation now means that you have to accept the bureaucracy and the world in which you want to operate.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are obviously there are still some discontent with some of that, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. So, you know, I think they are accepting much more of that now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they're in a fairly good position, depending on how council goes. But of course, like most people, the older we get, less we like change. But
Yeah, there was a lot of that in the room, wasn't
there was.
Yeah.
And even in the public response is just the fear of the unknown, I guess.
Yeah, that well, came as a huge surprise to me because I'm not au fait with the Mogs group just yet, but I thought surely you seem to whinge about council a lot, and now here's your chance to step up.
It's
But
actually a surprising outcome.
came as a huge surprise to me that I said no, we like it. Well, let's keep it the way it is. So,
Yeah, but the fact was, that I was in the room that day with this was done, and it was, you know, here's your chance to get rid of all the council stuff that's hindering you. And they didn't want it.
No.
was there any discussion at that meeting about what the other council and other councils and other boats had done in terms of Oscar?
A little bit,
Yeah.
yeah. But it was still brought back to the fact, like with the Oscar W, like their incoming chairperson said that when it comes to our health and safety, you don't have the council leaning over your shoulder saying you must do this, you must do that. But they realised you still have to have this stuff.
Yeah.
And they've accepted that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so
and COGS. Do we need to have? I think it's great that the
Andrew, Simone's got her hand up.
oh, Simone, sorry. You're still. There she goes.
That was
Yeah,
all good. That was accidental.
oh, sorry. We thought. Okay. Got excited. I think it's great. What the organ group came through with that letter. Is there any discussion that we want to have around that? Or?
I just think we had a pretty clear direction we want to head. You know, with council's approval.
Yeah.
We'll head in that direction and give it a go. See how it performs.
We certainly want to move forward with the support of the council and.
Yeah.
Oh, and the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the opportunity for the canal being somewhat separate to the other two boats, and being new,
Yeah.
an opportunity to try a different model.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
And what are their plans with that group moving forward beyond, or I suppose independent of while the response is coming from council? Is there, because the only thing I thought is you're not actually a
That's not incorporated. Right,
yeah.
That is our plan, that is our intent.
Yeah, well, you know, but Andy sort of brought to light, you know, cooperatives. You mean, I personally haven't looked down that path.
No.
Yeah, none of us have. Whether that's maybe a better option than you know, an incorporated body, I don't know. We need to look at it.
That's a perfect segue to our next point on the agenda. But before that, any comments from the screen? No shaking heads. In that case, would somebody like to move that we receive 7.6? Kevin, Les, all those in favour? Unanimous. 7.7 on page 112 is talking about non-distributing cooperative companies, which I might ask Andy to take us through.
Okay, as it was mentioned a number of times in a number of surveys, not only the written response, the community cooperative model was suggested. Having a read through the guidelines booklet for the community cooperatives, does seem to be it's very much in line with what we were originally asking for, non-for-profit, community-led organisation. It's just not something that necessarily was identified first up. So there are a number of options for community cooperatives. One is both of them basically go out and get shareholders. Whether there's a charge for that or a sponsorship or a membership fee or whatever the case may be. It is a source of funds, so somewhere along the line there has to be some genuine income, sponsors, benefactors and patrons and things like that are all available as they are for most not-for-profits. The biggest sales point to a community cooperative is that it enables a community to rally behind and protect and preserve a key asset that's essentially important to that community, whether it be a local post office or playground or whatever the case may be. The community cooperative, or both in our cases, the community cooperative would be dedicated towards the preservation, operation and ongoing security for PS Maritime, PW Mayflower or PS Canal if we had a sound for more. This shared distribution is a point of difference in a cooperative model. And obviously, we're leaning toward non-distributing body here. So a non-distributing body simply means that any profits that are left over from the operation or the pool of funds at the end of the financial year are not distributed to your shareholders. They are retained by the cooperative for use, maintenance and protection of the asset. A distributing model, which is the other option, is where those profits are then distributed to the people who've paid to be shareholders. So they will get a dividend as what would a company on the share market. And there's also non-distributing with no share capital model to be there. So it's really clear to me it's distributing and not distributing, and non-distributing. Clearly, if we're talking about our boats, where we need it to be. We don't need to raise a lot of money and create profit in 1 year and then find we're short next year. So it would be fundamentally flawed to go down that line. One of the biggest approaches to this is it has the possibility of really uniting community. There are a number of community cooperatives across the state, including for the supermarket areas, who do return profits to their stakeholders. There's obviously membership, which is voluntary and open, it's democratic control. It has economic participation, autonomy and independence, creates education, training, information, and there's also cooperation between cooperatives as well. There's plenty of examples and bodies to lean on. So in essence, that is about it. They meet the brief of what we were looking for. We don't have one in our area to automatically take on something like this. I believe it requires further investigation on behalf of council. And if there is interest in Maritime or Morgan for a community cooperative model, well, then that would be the first stage for
What's the advantages over a community co-op to a not-for-profit?
Jump to page 180. There's a table in the attached document which compares cooperatives, companies and associations on 3 columns. And it,
What did you say, 180?
180, 180, 181.
Oh, yeah.
That's so that's comparing cooperative companies, standard companies, and incorporated associations across those 3 columns. Which was my same question. I mean, I think it's certainly worth investigating as to what the relative advantages and disadvantages would be.
Well, the problem, my reason for that question was Canelli's nowhere at the moment.
Yes.
We need a direction to go.
You're one ahead of Marion and Marion Mayfair because we have people. So yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's certainly, and there will be. I think we need to look certainly at this further before this document was submitted, which is great because it's got a lot of case studies in it. I did some initial just Googling, and the one advantage of cooperative companies versus incorporated associations is that cooperative companies can work across state boundaries, whereas incorporated association legislation is specific to different states. It doesn't really matter. It may matter for something like Ciro, but it doesn't actually matter for an organisation that has a strictly state-based focus. But I haven't been enough into it or studied this close.
Probably my next question is, if you go back 40 years ago, there was cooperatives everywhere.
Yeah.
Perfect example, every riverland town that grew fruit had a co-op.
Yes.
Where are they gone and why?
Why?
Well, in the case studies here, there's still some that exist. And my query, which I haven't answered yet, is that I was looking for examples within this of cooperatives that were service-based or tourist-based organisations, as opposed to what you're referencing, which would have originally been trading-based organisations or property-based organisations. Because I'm assuming, Andy, we're thinking about boat management at this stage, not boat ownership. Or are we talking about both?
I think the question of ownership needs to be raised with any new model. If council want to relinquish ownership of the vessels, that hasn't even yet been thought of or discussed at council level. So
I think that's a whole new ball game again.
it's a whole new ball game. I would assume, shouldn't assume, but the easiest way is to see if there's support from cooperative to support the vessels. If there is, we start to work along those lines, work out what the cooperative rules are, what the purpose of that cooperative is, and if it is to eventually own the vessels as i.e. a trust that Rockford's might have pointed out, then it's up to them to negotiate with council about the ownership of the vessel. But at the moment, I think the Marion is protected under a deed of agreement with the National Trust that council will retain ownership and operate in our area. The Mayflower has an agreement with Rockford as far as what happens to that. So therefore, they would need to be involved in an ownership transfer. And Canali, of course, is not subjected to that sort of thing at the moment. So
that would, I suppose, if we're looking at that, we're actually going into extended future proofing for the boats, if you like, because I had been thinking for a long time prior to sustainability review and management models that where are the boats in another 20 years? And I have the definite feeling that local governments will not want to own those sort of assets in 20 years. Trusts are the way, could be a method of doing that, possibly with further investigation, a cooperative model may allow for ownership as opposed to within that structure, as opposed to an incorporated association, which would always be a lessee of the boat, which is I think what we see in the other two council areas is basically the incorporated association rents the boat from, or boats from the councils or the owner. So you have a landlord lessee situation, and then would I imagine have a constant friction between what the landlord pays for and what the lessees pay for, you know. And,
it's a difficult one. The relationship between council and whatever body ends up being there is a matter that needs to be very carefully considered. I'm sure the elected members will do that. But I'm a member of a community corporation of mine, 155 owners. And on paper, it looks fantastic. And 155 of those owners are supportive. Sorry, 153. So less than 2%. And I think this will be a common trait, whatever model you pick, because you have to have an elected board or management group. 1 or 2% of those people will not comply. It's just the nature of the beast. No matter how good you are as managers, or think you might be, or what objectives you may set, and whatever bylaws or corporation acts you might put together, you still have to counter for the fact that there's going to be a vocal, extreme minority who'll drive you crazy. And you need to be prepared for that and try and guard against that in whatever model you have. And I've thought long and hard for 10 years about this because I'm involved in one, I suppose. And I've looked at cooperatives and why don't cooperatives in their old form exist today? I think the answer to that is that modernality has overtaken them. Rules, regulations. Look at local government at the moment. We absolutely spend a huge amount of your time taking care of liabilities, insurance, this, that, and the other thing. Cooperatives just said, why bother? Now, I think they had economic pressures as well. But those cooperatives were largely volunteer groups. I think if you read a bit of the history, you find they just got crushed.
Mm. But it's interesting to read some of the case studies in this document, which there seemed to be a resurgence in some to retain regional ownership against larger companies, larger corporations. But
I think competition comes into it as well. A lot of communities were formed because their communities wanted something, and then, say, we've done the farmers is a great example. All of a sudden, Coles and Woolies opened up alongside.
Yeah, economic reality.
Yeah, so this is about the community having ownership and control and passion to make sure they don't lose something that's really.
I guess my summary of the whole thing would be there's some great options there. None of them are perfect, but if we were to look closely at them and find out and assess which one fits better with the ultimate owners of the vessels, I'm assuming that's council, in a medium to long term, find a model that fits that and go with it. Will you find the perfect model? In my opinion, no. But you'll find a good one. and find one that will work.
So a cooperative, what's its operating manual like compared to an association? It's got a constitution.
It still has a constitution, right? So, which is
This little comparison of cooperative company association, I'm trying to picture where a trust would fit into that same spreadsheet. I presume a trust is sort of aligned as a company, but as a not-for-profit.
What I've had in my head for some time, which I think we may find some heritage vehicles, I think like the Waverley in UK is governed by a trust. To me, the trust is actually a body of money which is managed by trustees, and that body of money feeds the vote. So I've always seen, and this is just my thinking about it, is that the votes need a superannuation fund. That's the easiest way to explain it, which is a big pile of money to raise.
Because I was going to say, where does the income come to top up here?
Yeah, and that's the trust. Right. So there's a superannuation account, and that spits out through its investments a set amount of money every year. So there's $2 million. That spits out $200,000 a year, which would cover the capital and some of the operational, or perhaps only the capital expense to the boat. And then you have the cooperative company that raises through running the boats commercially through volunteer labour, which makes it profitable. That goes back in and they feed each other. I think that's the way that I've seen it. So the trust actually owns the boat. I haven't thought through what the relationship between the A trust and A cooperative company is, and we'd have to find models to do that if that's the way to move forward.
I think
Which is, could be a lot of next year's conversations around this table.
whether it's a trust or a cooperative or a corporation, they're still under the umbrella of half a dozen state legislative bodies and groups and policies that have been made. And then you have federal level on top of that again. Either of those bodies is still impacted with all of those things. But at the end of the day, it makes it difficult to see there for one purpose, and this purpose will be successfully running heritage vessels and the things that go with them. I think that's where we try to really concentrate. What model is going to give us the best outcome for both local government and the community? And I really think it's there. It's just easy to be confused at the moment whether it's trust or cooperative or corporation.
I think
That's really part of the next conversation. Get to the nuts and bolts of what the cooperative can do, whether there's support to look at that within Maritime or the Mid-Murray as a whole.
But I just don't think it's a silver bullet.
Well, simple, but it's just a common theme, so it was worth putting that on the table.
It may be the most effective option, or it may not. It might be.
and a longer term succession. I mean, that you look at, I suppose, particularly the Marion, because it's the one that we've had the longest. It's gone from being a boarding house to being bought, like when you look at the succession over 20-year blocks, it's still surviving, and it's the last one surviving because of possibly happenstance, but how those 20 years blocks have gone, that the National Trust acquired it, that it came here, that the council acquired it. So, okay, what's the next 20 years? And is that in council ownership and management, or does that need to evolve into something else? That's we could talk about this all day, and we probably, I think it's a worthwhile conversation, but it could be a large chunk of next year. if everybody's covered that sufficiently, I think so. Would somebody like to move that we just receive the report on non-distributing cooperative? We have to make an acronym for it. Di, thank you. Second, Sean. In favour, everybody. Thank you.
I'll move, we have our break now.
I think I promised to look at that for 4 minutes past 2. Yes. If we just have to take a 5-minute break, guys, and then we'll come back to the 7.8, which is the chunky one for the day. Okay, folks, going to page 199 of your tomb. We're looking at 7.8, which is the recommendations that this committee will make following receiving of the above reports, the recommendations we will make to council. So this is fairly important in terms of where we head over the next, certainly the next 12 months to 2 years and possibly beyond. Do you want to speak to first with Andy? Take us.
Sure. Okay, firstly, it is a fairly long report, needed to be. It tries to bring in everything from included in 7.1, 7.7, tried to work on the rationale for suggested recommendations from this committee. So Ben and I spent a lot of time on this, massaging it to a point where I think it's fairly good level of report. Can't obviously speak for every member of the committee because you're all going to have your own ideas. Haven't read everything that we've read. We probably have the advantage of having a little bit more time. So thank you. Obviously, we'll go through the executive summary and then we'll skim over the report itself. So I'll read through the executive summary. The engagement process undertaken by Council as part of the sustainability review of its maritime assets and operations has revealed a community which is deeply invested in the future of its heritage maritime assets. The feedback drawn from 194 surveys and 15 written submissions demonstrates overwhelming support for the continued operation and preservation of the Council's heritage vessels, Maritime, Mayflower and Canal, as living symbols of the region's identity, history and economic vitality. The survey reveals strong evidence of their value to tourism, business, education and community wellbeing. While there are concerns about financial sustainability and volunteer succession, the prevailing sentiment is that these assets are irreplaceable and should be maintained as living operational heritage for future generations. Stop me if you think there's something you want to say as we go through it. It's always important to have that discussion. The community favours continued council ownership, operation and investment with openness to innovative partnerships and enhanced marketing to ensure long-term sustainability. Community cooperative models were raised as an indication of that innovation and would suit PS Marion as a unique vessel on the world stage and a symbolism of Madam's identity. Similarly with Canali as well, it's it has a long history within Morgan, and similarly, the community could very well embrace it and wrap it up in that sort of identity. Key stakeholders, Rockford Wines and the Madam Operations Group advocate for Marion to have special considerations, and Rockford suggested the operation of Mayflower should not financially support Marion operations. Community co-op model for Marion would be the way to deliver those objectives with Mayflower continuing under the VIC service delivery. Sustainable financial model for council was not seen as a high priority for any new model. However, some anticipated savings would be achievable if a new model was implemented. To provide a basic level of context, the 250,000 maritime operation is an individual cost to council's 10,000 rateable properties of $25 per annum.
Can I stop you there, Andy? So where are the anticipated savings coming from within a new model?
The survey response, there were two questions. One was talking about the current operations and what people felt were the 250,000 felt about spending $250,000. And there was a question about what level of support would you give to a new operating model. The responses to those were slightly different. The first one, there was an overwhelming majority of people said spending $250,000 is okay. It's council money, clearly. And in the second one, if it was a new model, the support to spend that amount of money wasn't quite as high. So there was a decrease in support for that. So that's interpreted to mean that if council continue to operate the boat, spending that amount of rotating money is considered okay by the respondents. But if council go to a new model, there's more support for some savings to council within that. Now, it might cost the same to run the boats.
Yeah, so I read it that if we would jump into a new model and we would make savings.
That's what I was reading.
No, so it wasn't intended to be that. So
we may need to look at rewording that. Slightly difficult. To me, I read it as we adopt a new model and that's going to save us money, but
it was discussed in an earlier report. Clearly, we haven't had time to go into depth of that, but there was a difference between two questions, which I think was in report 7.1, if I remember rightly. So just have a look at that. Most survey respondents stated that the current level of investment by council was about right, but not enough. 99.2% of 18 people stating it was too high. Tranche 1 Maritime Operations report was broadly supported, particularly where they aligned with community's desire for continued council ownership, operational transparency and enhanced volunteer engagement. There was no feedback received that indicated that changes were required to council's draft report, which is recommended to be finalised and actions identified within the review considered. Look now at the discussion analysis goes in a little further depth. There's a bit of background there, and that was part of when we've listed what the council resolution was. And essentially, they received the report, further investigation, viability of leasing and divestment of operations to other entities be undertaken, which we've done. Further consultation engagement with key stakeholders, the survey has now been done. So we've met the objectives of the council report, which kick-started all of this. So there's a little bit of repeated information with the previous report here about the number of surveys and what was said. Again, it's still valid when you're coming to making decisions on that. Get the main points for you. It's not turning over, sorry. Okay, so 194 respondents, 15 submissions, 1 expression of interest about Canali. 160.
Sorry to interrupt, Andy, through the chair. Do we need to read through the report? Like, has not everyone done that?
Yeah. Are you all happy that you understand the content? Okay, good.
Can I perhaps then ask if there's any particular points in the last parts of the discussion paper that anybody wants to ask Andy a question about? And if there isn't, I'm just saying if I've got any.
There's a section on the recommendations and a little bit of information on why those recommendations are in this report.
I've got just a basic question on the recommendations. number 4.
Can we just hold that? I want to jump back to them as a slab in a minute, but before just going through the rest of the body copy, can we go, page number, can we go to the report on the recommendations on, what page is that?
That's page 205.
205, sorry, I've got a different print. So we can just jump to 205, hearing what Ben's saying, that if everybody's satisfied with everything that leads up to that, if we can go through those 4 paragraphs under the recommendations and conclusion, and then we'll go back to the actual recommendations. So, Andy, do you want to talk to the recommendation commentary?
Okay. Yes, so we've been a little bit of narrative about each. So given the draft report's been reviewed and considered internally and externally extensively, part of the review, there has been minimal adverse commentary and already includes most of the key negative feedback received throughout the engagement process. It's recommended the committee recommends the council adopt the draft report without change. Based on the significant support received as part of the engagement process and a number of suggestions to consider a community cooperative model, is recommended that the committee recommends that council continue to operate all 3 vessels while further investigations are undertaken on the management model over the next 12 months for the vessels, including, not limited to, of course, the non-distributed cooperative model. If there is interest in this model from the Manning community, if it were about PS Marrow, or Morgan community, clearly if it was about PS community.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Marion's community is a lot further than Manning. Same with Canali. So I don't think you should be isolating towns. If I look at Marion and all the volunteers that support that boat,
Yes.
they're not all Manning people.
No.
You got to look at the wider people that operate the boat and support it. It's the same as I look at Canali as it's Blanche Towns and Swan Reach and the boat as much as it is Morgan.
Yeah, okay. So,
Do you understand where I'm coming
Yeah,
from?
Absolutely. The geographical base or any model doesn't necessarily have to be within that one township.
I would rather word it maybe mid-Murray community.
Yeah, we'll go back.
We can do that.
We'll go back and tweak the wording in the actual recommendations, I think. But noted, Kevin.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, just a question for Kevin. In the last line of that second paragraph, take the word Manning out, and it then reads the model from the community.
Yeah, which we make that may be as simple as that. Andy, back to you.
All right, the third paragraph, as identified within the draft reports, a technical maritime skills and knowledge gap in the current staffing structure, which will be further exacerbated by the pending retirement of someone. As such, it's recommended that the committee recommends the council business case be developed for the consideration of the engagement of the maritime operation with resource to reduce operational risks. Furthermore, given there was only an expression of interest received for the future operation Peters Canali and that there was support throughout the engagement process for the innovative outsourcing not-for-profit model, it is recommended the committee recommends the council, in conjunction with the committee, consider future offers for not-for-profit organisations to outsource any or all of the vessels.
Which would encompass that previous expression of interest.
Yes.
No, absolutely. If that's that is there to say that can be opened and explored. Yeah. Doesn't have to be limited to a different concept.
So you don't really need to go through the conclusion.
No.
So then if we jump back to the emboldened recommendations.
Yeah, that's which 200.
Page 200. So these will be the recommendations that we make to council. And this is where we can do any required word tweaking to this. So if I read the first one, the sustainability, so we recommend to council that the sustainability review of maritime assets and operations overview and recommendations report on the Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee agenda on 27th of November 2025 be received. Are we all happy to? We've done a lot of receiving today. So can then somebody move?
No, you gotta do them all.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. Okay, that's good. We'll put a tick through that one.
Okay with one.
Okay, well, I've got one down. 5 to go. Council acknowledges the overwhelming community support received through the engagement process for Council's heritage riverboat fleet.
Nothing further to say on that, really. So,
I had a question mark around overwhelming as an adjective, but I'm not going to die on that hill.
but it seems like compared to maybe some other consults, it wasn't.
Yes. Okay. So, are we happy with that one? Okay. Number 2 ticked off. Number 3. The Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee recommends that the council adopts the draft management review tranche 1 maritime operations 2025 attachment 1 item 7.8 Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee 27th of November 2025 meeting without change. So that is what Andy's just taken us through.
Yeah.
Yep. Number 4. The Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee recommends that council continue to operate all 3 vessels while further investigations are undertaken on the management model for the vessels over the next 12 months, including a non-distributing cooperative model for PS Marion if there is interest in this model from the Manning community.
So remove the word manner.
Remove Manning.
We would just take PS Marion out as well because it could apply to all 3 types. Or do you just want
I
to?
think that solves your problem, doesn't it?
It's
Oh, no, I'd leave Marion in there because you are talking about a cooperative model for Marion. But my point was,
yeah.
Marion's community is bigger than Manor.
Yes.
Like, for instance, you got a fireman and a deckhand that actually live here.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not in Manor.
Yeah.
That's
Would you
my,
put Mid-Murray in there, the Mid-Murray community?
like Les said, just remove the word Manor.
It's
Can I
always
just pose through the chair? I don't mind Mid-Murray being added in there because they're the ones that are for funding, contributing to this. And I know the volunteers come from more broader, but just for the committee's consideration, I'd pose Mid-Murray.
Yep, that's right.
I think that's.
I would like to propose that over the next 12 months is moved higher up in that sentence. So it just doesn't look like we're looking to build a management model for the next 12 months. It's just the way that sentence is.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not excluding other models, it's just saying including
Yes.
non-distributing cooperative model. It doesn't say you can't look at a community corporation.
It almost doesn't need to be said anything after the
Yeah,
12 months,
almost doesn't.
but it's like.
I think it sort of does. It sort of puts you on the right track. Making a suggestion, like if community cooperative models weren't to be included, you'd probably want to say we're not interested in that. Community cooperative models are one of several possibilities, which I think is the intent of that recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's just sowing the seed for some.
Sowing the seed to have a good look.
So you could put including but not limited to, as you suggested earlier.
So what are we changing it to? Are we just going to take out the Manning and put Mid-Murray in and
Yes,
you're happy with
yes,
that?
yep.
Cool.
And what you wanted 12 months moved up by?
Yeah, so the council continue while further investigations are undertaken over the next 12 months. So that gives us a time limit for that.
So just read that back to me, sorry.
Yep. Council continue to operate all 3 vessels while further investigations are undertaken over the next 12 months on the management model for the vessels.
Does the word recommendation need to be in there after investigations? while further investigations are undertaken towards recommendation of, or
No, but this is us recommending in this.
This is a recommendation. So can I read the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carry on again,
Thanks,
could you?
thanks. The Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee recommends that council continue to operate all 3 vessels while further investigations are undertaken over the next 12 months on the management model for the vessels, including a non-distributed cooperative model for PS Marion if there is interest in this model from the Mid-Murray community.
No, not really.
I've got it written down.
Good, thank you.
Um,
I'll grab that from you later then. I've got the first part and then you, Yeah.
If there's too many more changes,
I know, thank you.
Our last question, I promise, is are we singling out PS Marion for a non-distributive? Are we excluding the other 2 boats for a non-distributive cooperative model by?
It's a little leading like that, I think,
Yeah.
and we shouldn't be doing that because maybe it ends up being suitable for all the vessels.
Yeah.
Okay, so we take PS Marion out of.
well, unless you do, you're locking yourselves into a non-distributing cooperative model, we're looking at it. And you then got to go back to the community to determine if there's interest.
We've lost me, Les.
We would have to do that anyway, Alice. Yeah. So the interest may not be just for PS Marion, it could be open to more PS Marion.
Sorry, through the chair, Andrew, Teresa, instead of PS Marion in the last part of that sentence, you would just say
Yeah.
cooperative model for the vessels.
Yes.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
I reckon it's gonna be a worthwhile loss for Morgan.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. We don't want to exclude the other boats. Okay, can we put a tick through number 4 then?
Yes.
Number 5. The Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee recommends to council that a business case be developed for the consideration on the engagement of a maritime operations resource as identified within the draft management review train 1. Maritime Operations 2025 to reduce operational risks. Why do we call a person a resource? Or are we trying not to say person?
I don't know. It's a human resource.
Okay, so,
You might be like,
and are we, is there a particular reason we, okay, sorry, I'll ask a different question. What is a business case? What does that mean?
You gotta justify.
Yeah.
expense.
So within most organisations, if you want a new human resource as part of your team, you need to write a case for that. It isn't just a simple, hey Ben, let's have a coffee. Do you reckon you could employ someone else to help me out? Obviously, we need to justify to our elected members and our community of ratepayers that there is a need. The need's been identified. The risks of not having a person to do that are clearly identified. The benefits are identified, and then the council or Ben would have to consider on its merits the business case before appointing someone. In an organisation, if I were the owner of a company and I identify that I needed a new staff member, I'd probably go out and advertise for it. We don't operate in that similar ilk here. So a business case is warranted, it's responsible, and if a new person is employed, it is with the full backing of the stakeholders that we have within our system.
And that would be developed by the new manager in collaboration with.
Where it says there that it will be developed.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's fair enough. But what about the last few words? to reduce operational risks. Will such an appointment reduce operational risks? Or,
I think it would, considering what you got now,
well, is it?
without being rude in.
Well, no, so don't be as rude as you
No.
want. Be as honest as what you
Yeah, no,
please.
I think the role, in the ideal world, you would have a tourism manager that is, on one hand is 100% tourism,
Yeah.
on the other hand is 100% answer.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
That, but I still don't really embrace the term, he will reduce, or he or she will reduce operational risks. They might enhance management. Don't think they'll reduce risk.
Well,
Try and find something. I'm pretty sure I put something in.
the way I look at it is, if you haven't got a person that knows all the maritime aspects, you are at risk.
Andrew, just through the chair, I think resource rather than human resource is what I'd recommend to the committee, because it may not be a person as such. It could be a consultant. It could be, so it doesn't necessarily need to be a staff member as such. But what Andy has identified for consideration is that there absolutely is risks associated with not having the technical skills or knowledge within the business in some way. And that has created challenges for the boats over a period of time.
Allowance for a contractor, it may not be a staff member or an FT position.
But where we're also at, obviously council engages volunteers as part of their workforce. We're required to supervise those volunteers and to make decisions with regard to vessels. So within the context of this, I've stated in here that's inappropriate within legislation at the moment for council to rely on volunteer knowledge in this area, the maritime area alone, to reduce its legislative obligations, operational risks and supervisory responsibilities, to expand on what risks really are. If I'm honest, when I came along here with zero maritime knowledge, I became responsible for making decisions on the operations of steam-powered heritage vessels that I knew nothing about. After 3.5 years, my knowledge has grown, still to a point that's possibly dangerous. However, I have to get my advice from someone. The only people giving me advice are volunteers, and love them as much as what I do. There have been some questionable information at times given to me. The resource that we are talking about, person, people, whatever it is, would allow the new tourism manager to make decisions from an informed and knowledgeable, skilled and experienced staff member or other member about the operation of those vessels, and also for that person to make sure that the volunteers are actually doing what they say they're doing as well, which I'm pretty confident they are. But as a non-vote person, I don't.
And that resource then bears some responsibility by them.
The level of responsibility, you're quite right, Sean. So under safe work, it's a criminal prosecution if something goes wrong for someone in the decision-making line. At the moment, we're relying on information from our unpaid staff members, and I'm making decisions around what I think without any skills or experience or knowledge and qualification to actually make those decisions. That's a risk personally for me. It's personally a risk for Ben and other directors of council that rely on our volunteers.
Just to clarify that, there has to be negligence proven, Andy. It's not if something goes wrong, it needs to be a negligent act on behalf of the decision maker. So, but there is, the point is there's risks associated with any operations that we run.
Yeah.
And this particular recommendation, number 5, is really dealing with council continuing operates boats as they are at the moment.
Yeah.
Which I think is fine, in terms of, so that resource may come and go, basically. And that's good, council can deal with that.
Yeah.
It's just ironic that amidst the sustainability review, we're going back and asking for more staffing. But that's where we've ended up, so.
That's what a review is all about.
Yeah.
Is having an honest look at what's going right, and what's going wrong.
Which is, yeah, I just had that light go on the alarm. It's actually because you think sustainability, it's all about money, but actually this is about sustainability of risk mitigation, safety, preservation of boats. But
the recommendation is about the development of the business case. And that business case has got approval of that.
yes,
Yeah.
and would define, I think, what that person would or contractor would do. Yeah. Les, does that satisfy your concern about risk being in that?
Yeah.
Recommendation.
It's a little pedantic, but yeah.
We're allowed to be a bit pedantic, aren't we? So can we put a tick through that one, folks, without any change?
Yeah.
Yes. And to number 6, the Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee recommends that council, in consultation with the committee, consider future offers from not-for-profit organisations to outsource any or all of the vessels.
Can we change not for profit to some other thing, because the offer might come from a co-op?
You just take it out and put other.
I think the not-for-profit language was used heavily within the review and was referenced heavily within the responses.
I think what they're doing there is excluding for-profit organisations, which was, there's a lot of scepticism in the survey about for-profit organisations running these boats to the ground and then walking away from it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a co-op would be not for profit.
Yeah.
Well, not-for-profit doesn't mean you don't make money, it just means you don't distribute the money to the shareholders, you put it back into the asset.
You could say appropriate organisations, if you want to take that for profit.
Leave it.
Well, not for profits mentioned back through the
Yeah,
document.
right, through as documentation. Any other concerns? No?
Hey, for the votes.
In that case, let's put a tick through number 6. And I will then
Let me just read option number 4. Because we're going to bundle them together.
Yep.
The Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee recommends that council continue to operate all 3 vessels while further investigations are undertaken over the next 12 months on the management model for the vessels, including a non-distributing cooperative model for the vessels if there is interest in this model from the Mid-Murray community. Now you know.
So can I make can I ask that we move, somebody moves and somebody seconds that we accept the 6 recommendations on, I don't know what page number is, on page 200, to be presented to the council. Di, Kevin, all those in favour? Unanimous? Thank you, folks. I think we are done. Do we have any questions without those? Andy would love a question without.
Through the chair, could I just make a note of Andy's contribution to both the draft management, or now the management review, the reports to council in the past, and also this agenda item, noting that it's his last meeting of the committee, because the amount of work that has gone into this has been significant, and the engagement process. So I think it would be appropriate if the committee was open to it, in just acknowledging and noting that contribution. So thank you, Andy.
I would certainly concur with that. I remember the day I read it, I rang Andy and said, you nailed it. And I think it's also a wonderful, for an incoming manager, a wonderful body of work to come into, to actually have this substantial thing that you can go back and everything's been put into one spot in terms of a lot of our history and a lot of where we are, which will help him come up to speed more quickly. So, if next meeting will be at Morgan on 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 26th of February. Be there or be somewhere else.
Please be there.
Thank you, folks. Thank you for that. And thank you for on Zoom. I'll close the meeting and see you in February.